And we are back.
And we're back, bumble bitches.
I love that shit. So this has been, what, like a month and a half, 2 months in the making?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
One of our Patreon members, Jenna, has tagged us in your account and then immediately went to our war council and was like, you guys got to check this guy out.
Yeah.
His story is incredible. He does holistic medicine, is in plant medicine and all this stuff. And I immediately went to your page, watched the one video I was tagged in, and you had already been following.
Yeah.
So I jumped in and was like, follow, and then you messaged me right away. And I was like, holy shit, okay, this is definitely going to happen because this was fast.
I did not think, being someone who, gets a lot of messages and stuff on TikTok myself, I definitely didn't think that you were going to answer immediately, like with your following. I just know what it's like to sift through, all of it.
I don't.
Yeah. Neither. I tried at one point, but it became, so cumbersome, that I can't anymore, So it was really funny that I think it was in 10 hours, like that. You got fast. Right back to me.
Yeah, I make sure that I keep the people that I follow to a very small number so that those are the people who you can get through, because I have my messages completely turned off.
Yeah.
So the moment I guess I followed you, the message came through and it said that you were able to talk to me. So can you tell people what it is that you do and a little bit about who you are?
Well, yeah. So my online moniker is Deadeye Two Tongues. And in 2017, someone attempted to murder me and was a tattoo studio owner at the time. And it just sent my life into an absolute tailspin, down rock bottom. And it became absolutely necessary to find my way out. And I was way over medicated by big pharma, treating side effect after side effect, giving me new prescriptions and stuff all the time. Turned me into an absolute zombie. And one day it was just out of necessity. It was time to kind of wake up, drag myself out of the self-pity and figure something out. And what I found was that it was nature. It became a very potent and powerful medicine that allowed me to reassemble myself, put myself back together. And then after doing that and finding that there were so many things wrong with me, and then diving into different plants and different fungi, I started being able to create these different things that worked for me, different decoctions and tinctures and, things like that. And then I was like, well, what if I try to put this together for other people? Just taking the exact same things that had helped me. So I went and got my botanics license. And then we started mass producing them. Well, we say mass, we still do it all by hand, in a small little rented factory in Nelsonville, Ohio. But we pretty much just take the things that really alleviated a lot of the damage and stressor, or pressure and everything, that I was going through, especially when it comes to traumatic brain injury and PTSD. Someone tries to murder you, it really, really alters your brain's chemistry. And that was the most needed aspect for me, in which I found in the world of fungi. So we took it to the 500,000 people now that follow me. And we've been almost a company for a year. It'll be March 26th that I started. And we've put in about 80,000 in sales and managed to keep everything as cheap as we possibly can for people. We're now starting to find, that it's really helping people with like autism and, which is magic, just absolutely magic to see some of these reviews and things that are coming in because, I firsthand experienced it. And it truly saved my life.
Okay. So you said that, back out because that's very loud in my ears. So you said that first we can't just skip over the fact that somebody tried to murder you.
Okay.
Was it because you were a shop owner? Like, was there something that was happening in that you had to?
Oh boy. So what ended up happening? This is funny because for 3 years I didn't know who shot me, and there was just a lingering why for 3 years, which is maddening, which is absolutely maddening to experience. Especially there were people taking credit for it that didn't do it. The constant, well, no one gets shot for no reason, and it just echoes in your brain, and you're wondering why. It wasn't because I was a shop owner. So essentially what ended up happening was that, I was with a girl for 4 years and we broke up and we went our separate ways. We remained friends afterwards. I was still tattooing her. She got into a bad spout with a few dudes. And I even came and got her out of the situations. Like, we were still good. It was it was a relationship that, we peacefully walked away. And then she moved in 2 doors down from me 4 years later, with a guy. This guy is pretty unhinged. He is one of the reasons why I advocate for mental health more than anything, because it's so ironic too. Mother is a psychiatrist and father is a pharmacist, but very cats in the cradle like situation. I think they just bought him out of every bit of trouble he'd ever been in. But he had a severe temper. And if you want to, there's an episode that A&E did that I found out literally as I'm walking out of court, when the camera crews come in on me. And then they made that video. It came out like maybe 4 or 5 months after the court trial, and he was found guilty. But it's Accused, Guilty or Innocent, season 3, episode 7. But I remember this one day, he came to my porch because he was only 2 doors down. And it was after, I was scrolling. I was literally sitting on my couch scrolling on Facebook. I'm just going through, liking pictures, and all of a sudden there's this screaming at my front door. I'm like, what the fuck? And I go, and there he is, this short little guy, and he's barking at me. And I'm like, what the fuck is your deal? And he's like, you liked a picture from her Facebook. I'm sitting there thinking, I didn't even see a picture of her. What I ended up liking, it was a picture from Dragon Age. It was like a video game. I don't even realize it's her, and I don't have any reason to believe that I'm not allowed to like a Facebook picture. So, I'm like, whoa, dude. He's like threatening me. And weirdly, he told me he's from West Virginia. And I'm crazy, which is funny. We're in Ohio, and right across the street, or the creek from West Virginia. And he's like telling me that, and I'm like, what the fuck did that even? But he's screaming at me. He's telling me I don't even breathe the same air as her and stuff. And I'm like, whoa, dude. And I'm like, okay, dude. All right. I'm just in awe, pretty much. I go and I look, and I'm like, holy shit. I unlike the fucking picture. And I remember, I was so rattled by that. I was in a 5-year contract. So I broke up with her about 4 years prior. I'm still in this Verizon bill, but our bill is separate. So one's going to me and one's going to her. It's not like it even, but I'm like, we got to terminate this. This dude's nuts. I want nothing to do with it. So that was the last text I sent. Right. Well, that was enough to make him plot my death. Literally plot my death. So all of this kind of culminates with the fact that he was allowing his 2 chemistry buddies to use his father's hunting cabin in the middle of Columbus zip code. And it's like this dome thing. You'll see it if you watch that episode on the A&E. But he's letting his 2 buddies, who he's been childhood friends with his whole life, pretty much manufacture all sorts of methamphetamine and acid and Molly and all sorts of stuff, which only fuels a lot of this kind of crazy behavior. I don't know the logistics of what happens between them or whatever, but they end up moving out and all is calm. It's not like he ever came back to the house or anything. That was enough for me. I was like, bro, got the cell phone, moved over, canceled. That was it. All quiet on the Western Front. Well, then it's like a year later, they're gone. They don't live there anymore. I don't know what happens. Fucker comes back to my house at 1:00 in the morning, shoots me through my window. So enough time has gone by where when the cops are asking me, why did this happen? Do you have any enemies? I'm tattooing pretty much everybody in my hometown. I'm like a well-loved and respected person. I'm like, I have no clue. So must have been a burglary attempt.
Yeah.
I have no idea. And for 3 years, I have no idea. So finally, what ends up happening is the two chemistry buddies got sloppy and ended up ordering some stuff to this cabin that tipped off the DEA. When the DEA comes in, they kick in the door, they catch these guys dead to rights, and they go, "We know a guy that shot a dude in Athens."
Damn, just like that.
Bam.
Rolled
on him. So after that happens, oh man, after that happens, Athens' finest. Gotta love them. There's an old saying in Athens, I forget what show it was on. It was like a late night TV show. It was, if you want to murder someone, if you want to get away with murder, go to Athens County, because it's just fucking
that good, huh?
Yeah. So anyway, it's like a high profile case. A lot of people are pissed off because, I've been tattooing in the community. I've been in bands in the community, been in art. I sponsored a ton of different, like roller derbies and, boxcar racing, county fairs, church organizations, all sorts of stuff, and our shop was really good about that stuff.
So let's pause for just a second on that aspect. I don't think people realize how involved a good tattoo studio is with the actual community. Mm-hmm. We sponsor like Little League Baseball.
Yeah, totally.
Pop Warner football, wrestling. Anytime somebody comes in the shop and is like, hey, my daughter's doing cheerleading, you want to sponsor? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you do build a really big reputation, especially if you live in a small town. Where we're at in Port Charlotte, we have Port Charlotte, Northport, and Venice.
Yeah.
Punta Gorda, if you want to count that small area. There's only 270,000 people across four cities. So it's not a big area. Right. Everyone knows who you are when you're in a tattoo studio, especially if you're there for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
So to be a tattoo artist that owns a studio that is well known, like I can only imagine how what the fuck did I do to deserve this? That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, it was incredibly difficult, And so, I'm completely clueless as to who shot me. And I'm being asked, and I don't really, I don't have a lot of bridges I've burned. I don't have a lot of things to reflect on like that. So it's just this world of spinning ambiguity, and constantly asking, eventually I allowed my brain to settle on it must have just been a failed burglary attempt. Like I was doing well for myself. I've been tattooing 18 years. I'd owned my studio, I think at the time, it was 2012 and I was hit in 2017. So 5 years. I was like, someone had to know I probably had a big screen TV.
Yeah.
And probably thought they could pepper me through my window, and then run in and grab some stuff and get up and out, But it was far darker than that.
And they didn't actually try to rob your house.
No.
So, and they still chalked it up to a burglary.
No, they didn't really know what it was. No one really did. Now there was 2 shotgun shells left at the scene of the crime, and it's funny how even though you're the one that was, I was the one that was shot. I didn't know a lot about my own case for a long time, despite endlessly being brought in and talked to and questioned, and I didn't know there was 2 shells. I thought there was 1. The first one was a slug. He tried to hit me with that, and the gun misfired. So he racked. There was birdshot in the next one, but from 4 feet away, birdshot's fucking devastating.
Yeah.
But they had that DNA on the shells that were left there. And when Athens County got a hold of it, they drive up to New York where they find he's been tipped off as being there. They tail him, and he finally, I guess, either threw out a cigarette butt or something. They acquired DNA. Well, they showed him. They literally arrogantly pulled up to a red light where he's sitting there on his bike waiting to turn. And was like, see you soon, giving him all the time in the world to destroy evidence. Bringing my case to anywhere from 50-50 to 75-25, not in my favor.
Right.
And it was calculated. I got to see in discovery messages that he was sending to those two dudes who he obviously trusted enough to leave a nice little breadcrumb trail, you know? And I got to read the things that said, like, I'm going to use that old shitty shotgun because I plan on throwing it away. You know, it just always misfires. I found that out just a few days before I went into court, which really, truly let me know, like, he wanted to kill me. And crazy thing is, man, most of that shot hit me in the throat. So had that first one went off, I'd have been decapitated. I mean, that's how my life would have ended.
Clearly taking your head off.
I would have been a headless corpse sitting in my kitchen, just a closed casket, you know. And I got to read that, you know, and I got to read how, you know, I'm going to need help. He's a big dude. You know, I'm going to need help fucking carrying his body, disposing of him. You know, I got to read all that. And that shit does something to you. Like, it really does, you know. And, you know, that was in the building up. When they first brought me in and they sit me down, you know, they do everything without you knowing. You know, like they go, you know, we already went through and cross-referenced all your text messages. We cross-referenced all your phone calls. And they're looking at me like, how do you even know this guy? You know, and I'm that's the thing. I've met this dude once when he's yelling at me on my porch. Like, you know.
So wait, they went through your records?
Oh, yeah.
As the victim of a shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that a violation of your Fourth Amendment? Like, unless you were a suspect, how did that work?
I don't even know. But when they sat me down, it was obvious that they had already done it. You know, it's one of those things where they're asking you, knowing the answer already.
Yeah.
So, and I remember that moment because when I looked at them and said, I don't know. Like, and they looked at me like, bro, it's like you won the fucked up mental health lottery because we've gone through your records. We don't see anything. We don't see you taunting or berating or cheating or fucking around with this dude's girlfriend or anything. You know, it's literally, it's that bullshit of a situation, you know, which ultimately too makes you stop and think, like, I literally got shot for liking a fucking Facebook picture. Like, that's the reason I'm missing my eye. That's the reason I had to go through all this shit, which brings a lot of anger and shit to the surface, you know, that like just warps you and shit. And, you know, that's why, you know, whenever I had this opportunity, you know, this is after, man, he tried to pry his ankle monitor off one night, dude. And I did my best to stay off the radar, to live in a basement where I barely saw sunlight, where no one knew who the fuck, like where the fuck I was for so long. And still they knew where the fuck I was. I had sheriffs come up and post themselves right outside my house, and I'm able to see the reflection of these red and blue lights. My phone goes off like an Amber Alert. You know, Ramon Nieves tried to pry his ankle monitor off, and I'm sitting there like, oh, what the fuck? And then it's all happening outside, and I'm like, whoa, I mean, dude, goosebumps, you know. But, you know, for years I sat in that basement. It was like 3 years, you know. I was living in my buddy Chase's downstairs basement, you know, just kind of slowly taking myself out and away. Because, man, I had a hard enough time walking by windows. You know, like, I mean, I had the craziest phobias come up. I couldn't fucking dream anymore. I had the same recurring dream every single night where I would be in my kitchen, I'd get shot, spin out, I'd lay on the floor, which never happened, by the way. You know, it was some adaptation that my brain did. And I'm laying on my back and I'm staring up at the ceiling, and the kitchen door is to my left, and the kitchen door would slowly open. And if I had an argument with someone that day, or it could be the gas station attendant who, you know, like I felt like was a dickhead to me or something, you know, whatever, I'd roll over and they would walk in with the gun.
Now, was that before they actually found the guy, or was that until they found the guy? Did that stop when they found him?
Slowly.
Okay.
But that became kind of like a weird, almost like thing with my brain. Several times it was my mom, it was my girlfriend, you know, it was like showing through like my fatherhood abandonment issues, all sorts of stuff like that. So I essentially developed this phobia of sleeping, which made my brain develop insomnia. So now I'm not sleeping 5-6 days at a time.
Which makes you delusional. Like you will actually hallucinate from that.
Oh my God, dude. And dissociation. And, you know, there were nights that I would literally just, you know, that's why I carry these around with me all the time. Where, you know, I just have to put on my headphones and sit in a closet where there's no entryway. And, you know, like is the only thing that could really like, you know, make me feel safe. And it's just this big blur. You know, you remember the movie Fight Club, right? Mm-hmm. Where, not Tyler Durden, but the narrator, you know, is just talking about how, you know, he's almost waking up in and out of, you know, these different scenarios or different places, you know, and that was happening to me, you know, because I didn't have any sort of answer. I didn't have closure, you know, and whenever he was found, whenever that happened and I got that, things did start to change. And, you know, the mystery was kind of pulled off. But then I had to deal with the aspect, you know, of I had so little involvement in this person's life that it was just so bizarre, which like made me like, you know, almost like seethe with just like why, you know, and then you have the whole him doing the TV show and all sorts of stuff, man. Just,
well, I want to actually ask questions about the TV show, but I want to touch on the not sleeping for 5 or 6 days at a time. You know that your brain will shut off.
Oh yeah.
Like it gets to a point. We used to do this when I was locked up. We'd stay up as long as we could because it would be a fun little entertaining thing until you finally shut the fuck down.
Yeah.
Which is really stupid. But when you're a juvenile, you do dumb shit. But you will get to the point where you can no longer force yourself to stay awake and your brain will actually just disconnect. Like you shut the fuck off for 15, 20 seconds, sometimes a minute, and then it kicks back on. And that's where that, the feeling that they talk about in Fight Club where you don't know where you're at when you wake up and what you're feeling when you're going through those things, it is like a light switch.
Oh yeah.
I read a whole thing about this like 6 or 7 years ago because I only sleep 3 to 4 hours a night.
Right.
And it's not healthy for you. Most people say that if you only sleep 4 hours a night, you'll die in your 30s or 40s because your body's not able to recover the way that it is. And for people like me that sleep the way that I do, I'm such a small percentage of people that actually function like that.
Yeah.
But if I get less than 3 or 4 hours, I'm useless. So it's really weird the way that works. So that's very interesting to hear. On the TV show aspect, did you know they were making, you didn't know, like they never reached out to you to ask you questions. They just made a fucking TV show about you and that was that.
Yeah. And then dramatized it. Oh, it pisses me off still. I'm making a video about it, you know, because that was the most eye-opening experience for it made me look at every reality. I mean, I already knew reality TV was bullshit.
Yeah.
But when it's you and when you know, and you're literally watching it like, holy shit, this is like they didn't have enough of anything to even really make an episode. So it's just all this filler. Making it, you know, and they do their best to leave you in this like sense of, you know, like, oh
my God, what happened?
Did he or didn't he?
Yeah.
But I think it's so funny because like at the end of that episode, it's like drama. It's like build up. They do some funny stuff in there. Like they like ask him like, do you know him? And he's like, no, I don't know this guy, you know.
He was actually on the show.
Oh yeah. Oh, they're following him around the whole time, which is just crazy to me, you know, because like while I'm like, you know, sitting there dealing, and you know, it's the time of COVID, you know, and I'm losing my studio because of COVID, because my mental health, because my nerve damage and everything is just so just crazy, you know, like, you know, meanwhile, he, by the way, the 2.5 years that he got to serve out of the 5 that he got, by the way, was on an ankle monitor that he tried to pry off. So he got to literally sit in his mom's house for 2.5 years, and he bitches about it. He literally bitches about it in the show. And and he talks like, yeah, I was doing real good for myself. I was like doing what was it? Something like peace, like what, Peace Corps. Ironically, he's like, yeah, I was doing like Peace Corps photography and I was doing really well. And this just really fucked my life up, man. Like this just really set me back. And I'm watching it like,
yeah, dude, what the fuck?
Like, which pisses me off because it's like, I forgave him. I mean, I had an opportunity to take everything that had happened to me and get to sit in front of him face to face and be like, you know what, dude, Like,
right.
get fucked, man. And I didn't, you know, it was like almost like a weird clairvoyant like thing when I got to write my victim impact statement. I can genuinely say that was not my writing. Wasn't. It was as if something like stepped in and gave me what to say and guided me in that moment. And that thing hit the page 20 minutes. And, you know, I'm going to pin that to my top of my videos because that video is super important. Because I got to stand in front of the man who tried to end my life and choose my pathway and lock wounded eye with him. And, you know, and at the time I didn't have a cool prosthetic. This is actually the same caliber bullet and everything that he hit me with.
Yeah.
That's why I wore this fucker today.
That's funny.
It's my way of taking it back, you know. But, you know, I got to sit in front of him and I got to, you know, look him in the eye and deliver words. And I, at that point, had started to like realize that the mental health struggles that he had created for me, that it had become a challenge for me, that had at points ruined me, my positive ability to think, you know, to remember shit, you know. And I realized that I was going to make the world a more negative place if I used that opportunity to stand in front of him and pretty much just, you know, wag my pecker in his face, you know. So I decided to forgive him and encourage him to better himself and to, you know, resolve things peacefully and to use your words, you know. And I told him that he had actually empowered me, you know, that because that was the buildup. That was the focal point, man. You know, that, like, I remember that I got to that apex, you know, where it was all building up to where I got to sit face to face with him. And whenever it happened, whenever I got to do that, everything lifted off of me in this just crazy, like, movie-like way, man. I felt light again. I felt, you know, unencumbered.
Do you think that's because you found forgiveness in this or because you finally got closure to your case?
I think it was a bit of both.
Because they say forgiveness is for you, right? Like you forgive people so that you don't have to carry that.
Oh,
they still got to carry the weight of their actions, but you letting that shit go let you live your life.
Oh yeah. You know, and, you know, like I speaking it directly to him, you know, I even in my statement was like, dude, I wish I could give you a hug, you know. I feel like maybe that was a big part of his problem. You know, maybe he didn't have a lot of attention and love. Maybe the acting out, you know, and shit like that was because he did not have that growing up, you know. And what did I say? We can be the architects of, like, you know, a more perfect future starting now. You know, if we, you know, I offered to write him in prison, you know, and be like, hey, like, I'm obviously fucked up. You're obviously fucked up. Like, why don't we try to communicate? Which he never took me up on.
That's wild.
You know?
Do you think that was guilt? Or do you think he's still harboring a fuck you?
I think that he is just somebody who needs a lot of like psychiatric help.
Gotcha.
I really do. You know, I think that his anger really truly gets the best of him. And I think that he's lived a life where his parents, I've witnessed it, his parents will buy him out of trouble. So that only enables somebody and makes them more bold. And especially after you get a super light prison sentence, after doing something egregious like that, it terrifies me that it's just, you know, it's like, oh, well, I'll just do the shit again. You know? That's why I've done several videos being like, hey, dude, I know you're out. You know, this video is for you. I hope, you know, because you could put a civil protection order between two people.
That doesn't mean nothing.
But you can get around it. You know, you can go to the public library and look my shit up. So I still put these little things out like, yo, dude, like, I hope you're doing well. I hope you acclimate back into society. I hope that, you know, you spent your time in there bettering yourself, caring about yourself, learning, you know, like to let things go, you know, learning to like be more delicate, you know. I put that out there, but is it hitting home? Who knows? You know,
I would imagine that there's still a a checking in to see what you're doing, right? Like that, you guys are connected now for life overall.
Oh, it's like Voldemort and Harry Potter.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a great way to word that.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions and I want to get into the next phase of your life if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your PTSD and what it was like acclimating back to society. So I've never actually been shot, but I've been shot at and I have been stabbed. I've had people try to kill me.
Yeah.
There is a fear of everything at that point. You can't eat in peace. You can't go out to even check your mail. Like there's a whole lot of constantly just, it's exhausting. The hypervigilance is exhausting. How hard was it for you to leave that basement and work your way back into society?
Well, that's the funny thing. I didn't.
What do you mean you didn't? I mean, you got 500,000 followers on Instagram or TikTok. So you definitely have acclimated yourself in some way.
Digitally.
Right.
Yeah, digitally. So what ended up happening was we settled that case and we moved out and we started like a little farm. And that's where, I started doing a more self-reliant journey. That's where I found, that property is where I found the mushroom that ended up like helping me.
We're going to absolutely get into that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I moved out there because, and especially that was during the time of COVID, everything was crazy. And I was just kind of done, there was like this meme that said, like comply or, be ostracized from society. And it was like this like wilderness man sitting next to a fire that was just like proudly like, I'm out, and I was like, I took that to heart. I wanted to be that, and I grew up, out in the middle of the sticks with, a very, very like do-it-yourself type family, very herbal florist, dad's a forestry major, so it was just, I thought of all the times tattooing where I had overbooked, I was always very much like that. It was just money, 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 money. And then it was like reflect all the opportunities I didn't want to do that anymore. And I had gotten a settlement. It wasn't much. I got $100,000 for getting shot, Yeah, it was, you lose an eye in a workplace, like $7 million is like starting.
So if he'd just shot you at your shop, you'd have been set.
Well, that probably would be based off of like, what I had going on in the shop or whatever, which I didn't have any sort of, insurance or something. And it's probably so specific too. It'd probably literally have to be like shot in the face insurance or something, But so I kind of found myself, I was really like, my hands were always like this and my body would jerk and my body would kind of jerk and move and, and like, so I got cut from my groin all the way up to my sternum. They did an exploratory surgery and they, cause spread shot, man, it hit me from my groin, all the way up to my sternum, my throat, and like obliterated the side of my face. It caved my skull in 3 different places, but they did this exploratory surgery, and removed a whole bunch of my guts and had to chop out like feet's worth of intestines and stuff because they were Swiss cheese and leaking and turning me septic that night. And that scar, right? So I went back to work 24 days after being shot.
Wow.
Because I'm an asshole. Because you have this whole entire community who's like, you're Superman. You are awesome. You kick ass, dude. You are invincible. And although you don't feel that way, you don't want to let those people down. So you go right back to it and you just kind of fester and you're using work to kind of be your escape. But work was hurting and it was getting worse. But that scar, you're a tattooer. Mm-hmm. You've tattooed. Tattooers become question marks by the end of their lives, man. Their back is,
you're a shrimp.
Like this. Well, that scar, sitting like that all the time. I wasn't stretching it out. And man, I was bent.
So did it like made your abdominals contract? So you were forced to be like that then?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So I'm stuck like this, shaking all the time. I can't remember shit, like at all. They had me on 900 milligrams of Neurontin. And then whenever the Neurontin, was messing me up. They're like, oh, we'll give you Adderall, and oh, you're depressed, we'll give you Zoloft. And every time it was like, I would complain about something. It was like, we're going to treat the side effect. Next thing you know, I'm like walking around and it just sounds like I'm a giant maraca.
Oh yeah. All those pills carrying.
You know?
Now the Neurontin was for neuropathy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's going to get into the nerve damage aspect. I don't want to get too far away from my question because the very specific thing was that I wanted to know about your reacclimation, which you answered. You said that you're really not, but you are doing the social media thing. Having 500,000 followers on any platform is nothing to scoff at.
Right.
We don't blend into a crowd. We got tattoos on our face. Like it's becoming a whole lot more mainstream. I mean, fucking rappers are doing it all the time, but we still get everywhere we go. Mm-hmm. So you have this story, you have PTSD about being in public. You have your brand with your horns and like your eye and your whole Instagram following, TikTok following. There's got to be some level of people approaching you like out of nowhere. And I'm sure that every one of those has a layer of anxiety because even when we're approached, we don't know if it's going to be a positive interaction unless they're crying. Because that happens for us, especially with her, dude. People fucking melt down when they meet her. It's wild. So how was that transition for you? Like, is that still something that like really worries you? I mean, this has only been 4 years.
Yeah. Well, you know, when I moved myself out there, it was kind of like an attempt to not have to be around people, you know, anymore. I wanted to have like a lifestyle that was very self-reliant, you know, that didn't rely on grocery stores, that, you know, was plant-based and, you know, kind of making my own medicine, you know, so now I'm growing my own mushrooms, macerating them, taking care of myself in that way. And I'm starting to film it and just be like, you know, hey, this is what I'm doing. And my story just blew up, you know, unintentionally, you know, I'm just kind of doing that because some people kind of suggested it, you know, hey man, you should put that on there. I think you would make it big on TikTok, you know, or big on social media. And after a few videos of just kind of identifying plants and showing, you know, like me processing and healing my trauma, you know, people wanted more, which blew up into the 500,000. But I still live out in the middle of nowhere. You know, I still live in an old, like hunting, like a farmhouse.
So knowing that you still live in that small area, and you are doing a lot of content creation, my next question was going to be, do you think that there is a therapeutic aspect to that? Are you getting something from it? Yeah. Other than obviously fame or like income or whatever that you're doing. Cause we are doing our podcast is about helping people first.
Yeah.
That's where the passion comes in. The money that we're making from this has become a business and we have employees and shit and that's great.
Yeah.
But the helping people has helped us more than I feel like we've helped others.
Yeah, totally.
So there's a therapeutic aspect for us. Is that similar? Like, do you have that?
100%.
What does that look like for you?
Well, you know, I've only made, I think, up to date in the 3 years I've been on TikTok, from TikTok, about $8,000. Yeah, I know. Everyone always furrows their brow like when they.
Are you in the creator program?
I am.
How have you only made? How is that possible?
I don't know. I can pull it up right now and show you.
It's wild.
And that's the thing is that a lot of people, they're like, whoa, dude, like I make like way good money. I mean, I don't really do a lot of the TikTok shop stuff and everything, but I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing different. You know, there's people who have way less followers that make way more. But yeah, so I mean, obviously for me, it's really not about money. You know, it's about like really, I don't know, giving people hope. You know, after you've like sat in a situation that's so hopeless for so long, and when you feel like, you know, you've come out, like you don't need other people to like verify that you've made it, you've done it, like, you know, which took forever, which really, really took a long time. That's whenever you want other people to have that elation. You want other people to feel that. And, you know, and there's so many people who I've talked to who've near given up hope, you know, or who've been through worse, you know, or similar, you know, who have like told me, you know, like, dude, I was on edge today and I saw your video. You know, that's what makes you do it, you know. And then the creative element. I really enjoy making like skits and stupid, you know, like it's every day. It's like a new challenge to make something fun and entertaining. And, you know, and that's like a form of art. You know, I was the drama club president in school, you know, like I love this shit.
Now,
like,
I know that you don't tattoo.
I do.
You still tattoo?
Yeah. Well, do
you still own your shop or no?
No, I sold my shop because, you know, I just couldn't do it anymore.
Right.
You know, like, you know, my TBI and my memory loss and all that made it to where I could not keep up with taxes. I could not keep up with, like, you know, all like the bookkeeping and everything. And I tried to give that off to a manager, and that ended up not working, you know, and just dug myself a hole and was like, I need out, you know, I just need out of this. So I sold it to 2 of my employees, and they're still thriving. They're doing great.
Shop's still there then?
Well, they changed the name of it. So, but you walk in, it's very much so a lot like the old shop, but a husband and wife duo, you know, who really sunk their teeth into the opportunity, are doing really well.
Good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So knowing that you, for those of you who are unfamiliar with neuropathy, it's like pins and needles constantly. Some people say that it's like electricity, static. I've heard people say that it feels like lightning bolts. It's very prevalent with people who have diabetes. You see it a lot in their feet. There's a poor blood flow that happens. There's a whole lot that comes from that. So how did the neuropathy affect your tattooing? And then can we get into how you found Lion's Mane?
Yeah. Yeah. So first off, that battle with neuropathy was terrible. So my mother unintentionally, she had just whispered to the doctor pretty much that there was addiction within our family, which I think was written down somewhere, because every single time that I complained about my hands, which, oh man, was the most brutal aspect. Like I still am doing it. When I think of like textures, it'll trigger like a neuro like response in my fingers. You know, and that was the thing. And it's subsided. It's gotten so much better. I can actually touch stuff and I don't tremble anymore. But, you know, it was real bad for a long time. Like any sort of touching anything was terrible. But my mom had mentioned pretty much to the doctor, she didn't want them to give me a lot of pain pills. My grandparents, my uncles, everybody on my mom's side struggled bad with addiction, which I ended up struggling with, you know, alcohol-wise, because that was the only thing that would numb the neuropathy.
Right. Can you move that just a little bit closer to you?
That was the only thing that would, you know, numb neuropathy at the time, you know, and let me sleep. But, you know, so she's like, hey, don't give him a lot of pain medication. So they gave me 35 Percocets after I was shot and sent me out. That was literally, yeah, that was literally all I got. And what ends up happening is that sets this pace for the rest of my recovery, where every time I'm like, I'm in pain, they're like, yeah.
Addict.
We're sure you are, you know. So when I finally went in for an EKG and I get these fucking needles rammed all throughout my arms, and then they electrify them, you know, to measure the electronic current and how fast it moves from one to the other, you know, and how your body is able to send, you know, that from one to the other is how they gauge. It's supposed to make a certain frequency, you know, that frequency and how high or low it is indicates, you know, its pace. They couldn't fucking find one.
Wow.
I'm watching this doctor spin these needles around in my arms, and it just sounds like popcorn. It's like, and he looks at me, and this is after like 2.5 years of pleading, like begging somebody to address it. And he just looks at me and goes, how the fuck are you functioning? And I just broke down, dude. Like, I just fucking lost it. Finally. Because I mean, if you've ever dealt with neuropathy, it ruins your fucking life. You can't run your fingers through your kid's head, like your hair, like their hair. You can't give a hug to your partner without it ponying up and stabbing you. And it just fucking eviscerates your everyday life. You wake up in the morning and you think about all the things you can't do. And it's torture. It's absolute torture. And I've never been somebody who had dark thoughts, but I think it was because, you know, Zoloft and drinking, you know, and there was a day we had moved out to this property. And I don't know why I woke up and I was on a fucking mission. And I was going to take myself out. And I was like, I'm going to go hunting. And I go walk in and I'm looking around the property, and I knew pretty much where I wanted to go, but I was like pacing around it. And I had sat down on this old dead elm tree, and I remember having the first good sensation in my left hand that I had in I don't know how long. And I looked down and it's this fluffy little mushroom. And I picked it up and I messed with it in culinary. I recognized it. I knew it was edible. And at the time I was looking for anything. I was looking for absolutely anything that could help me. And I picked it up. I remember just being like amazed by it. And it was like something clicked in my brain. And I thought to myself, I was like, I bet you if I just hang on a bit longer and just go look at what this is. And it sure as fuck was. It's a unique biological compound. There's heranocinones, there's aranacines, which pass through the blood-brain barrier of the human brain, which hormones even have a hard time doing. Antibiotics have a hard time doing. And it's able to pass through, and it stimulates proteins in the body that kickstart a process called neuroregenesis. And it's one of the only other thing that really can do that is found in a bioluminescent jellyfish. It's like aquaclearleone, I think is what it's called. And I took it home and I started macerating it. So maceration is the simple process of just submerging a fungi or a plant to extract the esters and compounds using alcohol. Alcohol, makes soluble a lot of these medicinal compounds. And after a few months, the material breaks down and you end up getting, a direct to the bloodstream, like type of medication, a concentration of these compounds. I started taking that and I noticed a crazy difference in my ability to think. My cognitive delay was starting to kind of go away. Find out that lion's mane also has antidepressant properties. It's magic. It is able to kind of make a repair way in damaged like neurons. So when I got shot, my left temporal lobe and my hippocampus, my memory center of my brain, was damaged, forced me into a coma to try to sustain me, and my brain is swelling, causing all sorts of issues and damage, as time goes on. And, the governing side of, your left governing side is like, your mathematical capability, problem solving capability, your ability to process emotions, and then your memory center. Like I remember I would go home after tattooing and not remember the tattoo that I did.
Wow. This is a lot because we won't remember names or faces, but we'll remember tattoos.
Right. And, I always thought it was funny. I was like, I would almost look at tattoos like Native American names, oh, you're Crow on foot.
Right.
You're like, okay. That's,
that makes sense. That's funny.
Yeah. You don't remember their name, but you remember that you spent hours painting a picture like on their body. But, I start taking this and I need like confirmation, is this like a placebo? Am I placeboing myself? So I start looking for opportunities to kind of give this to other people. And there's a guy up the road. He's the father-in-law of one of my good friends who had just had a stroke, Wesley. And I bring it to him and I'm like, hey man, we just try this. So he's in the same boat, trembling, can't write his own. I mean, I remember watching him one day trying to feed himself and just like, he was, and just watching this food fall off his fork, man. And I was like, man, miserable. I know that feeling. So I started giving it to him. I gave him like, 3 months supply, and I get this like phone call one day, and I'm like sitting there and I walk in and I'm handed a check, and it's not to me, it's not to me, but it's a check. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I'm looking at it and everyone's just smiling at me, and I'm not putting two and two together. And I'm like, could someone fill me in here?
Right.
He wrote his own name. He couldn't write his name. And then, he sits down and he's eating in front of me and he's just breaks down. He's just, thanks, you know, in this big way. And that was the moment that I was like, I need to figure out how to do this on a more grandiose scale, because the empathy in me can feel these millions of people in car wrecks, attempted murders, you know, war, like all of this. And I'm like, this is where I'm supposed to be. So I start diving in further, start getting into phytochemistry, you know, mycochemistry. I start diving in. I start doing a process called soxylation, which is just a perpetual, it's a perpetual percolation system where you're essentially able to rapidly extract compounds, you know, as long as they're heat tolerant, you know, isolate compounds, things like that. And I start doing this, and the whole time I'm doing TikTok. The whole time I'm like, check this out. I just got this giant thing, and I'm, you know, and I'm like taking people through. I'm like learning, you know, and I'm like, learn with me, you know, and people are like, fucking get it, dude. Like, get it, you know. And that was like a massive encouragement. You know, that was like huge, you know, because that was the right type of rooting me on that I needed. You know, that allowed me to like feel vulnerable and broken, and because people were watching me actively fix myself. You know, people were watching, you know, this just completely devastated human being start to like reassemble. Right. You know, sitting there with the sutures, patching and stitching, you know, and like, yeah, and it's very Frankenstein-like, and it's beaten and broken and everything. But, you know, and then it's been 3 years now, you know, and I'm in the gym now. I'm like crushing it. I'm like killing it, you know, like I've like put myself back together, and I did that in front of 500,000 people now at this point.
Right.
You know, so to answer your other question, you know, that is my reemergence into society. It's just, am I able to like do it in large crowds? Like, am I able? Not really, you know, but I can post that video knowing it can go in front of a lot of people. But yeah, you know, that was how I found Lion's Mane, was literally on a day that I was going to leave.
So as somebody that does mycology, Lion's Mane is a hardwood growing mushroom.
Not really.
No.
Not at
okay.
all.
So then the question I was going to ask you is, how common is it to find that where you live?
Incredibly common.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. See, it's not here. So
right. Oh yeah. Well, you live in a tropic zone. So, you know, that mushroom is more so a cool weather. You're going to find it, more so at the, you know, kind of beginning of autumn, like right on the cusp of winter.
Okay.
You guys don't have that.
No.
Now, through, you know, genetic manipulation, you do have heat tolerable strains that you can grow, but it's, you know, essentially it's able to be grown on just rye berry. That's kind of the go-to.
A lot of mushrooms can be grown on that.
Yeah,
I have always had, every time I've grown Lion's Mane, it's always been in a wood substrate.
Yeah. So it's called sapotropic. So they are decomposers. You know, their mycelial networks work their way into cellulose and lignin, and they break down. So they're kind of like a janitor. You know, without the world of fungi, you know, every tree that would fall
would just be there.
Would be there. We'd be just looking at endless amounts until it blocked out the sun, and you know, new seedlings and things wouldn't be able to grow. You know, but yeah, it's incredibly easy to grow. There are heat tolerant strains that you can get. You know, those are, I think, more for people who want to grow inside their house and things that like that don't have air conditioning, and you know. But yeah, people have tweaked the genetics to be able to pretty much So that's a cognitive bias, because in my head everywhere is like here, because this is where I've lived for the last 40 years of my life. Yeah.
So I think that like I've never seen Lion's Mane just growing out in the wild. I've seen turkey tail. And I've seen other mushrooms that deal with our climate very well, but I've never seen Lion's Mane. So when I saw your story, I was like, what are the fucking odds of him sitting down and finding that? But knowing that it grows everywhere up there and that you just find it, it's common. It's not that big of a deal. But in my head, I'm like, holy shit. That was a big thing for me. Like the universe is like, hey, motherfucker, here I am.
Well, what makes it even funnier is that Lion's Mane typically likes to grow up at the more so top of trees. You know, like whenever you're hunting Lion's Mane, you know, there's a lot of people, when they're hunting mushrooms, they're very conditioned to be looking almost at the forest floor or like right at eye level. Lion's mane is one that you need to kind of cast your gaze up, like more so in the tree. You're more so finding them and you're taking a big stick and banging them off. Well, this tree had, been inoculated. Well, it had gotten the bug, right? And it worked its way through and brought down that elm, or had, made its presence in that elm, and then the elm falls. So it's like literally sitting right at waist level. Now, what was crazy was, and I did a video on this, was how there was so much lion symbolism that was popping up in my life, like ever since I was shot. So the kind of go-to meme that started popping up with people who were supporting me was all big cat and lion energy, and it was just everyone posting like these roaring lion pictures and stuff. This was long before I found it, and it was afterwards, after I took like a stroll down memory lane, and I was like, man, sometimes the universe is literally just like nudging and pushing, and there was this one video that I did where I was talking about lion, like, how lion's mane is it's my comfort. It's what I think I need to spread awareness in the world more so than anything. And an actual mountain lion showed up on my property, and I had a video on it, and it was like 2 days after I made that video. So, I'm like at this point really tuned in, like, I got you. I understand, I know I'll stay in my lane, and since I've been given that purpose and everything, it's been a good journey. I feel like I have like a sense of purpose, which keeps me on the straight and narrow and keeps me from, deteriorating, which keeps me from dark thoughts, and which allows me to give people, an opportunity for change and give opportunity to, come out of that darkness that I almost succumbed to,
Do you, I realized just now that you have not actually said the name of your company yet. And at the end, we normally do social medias and shit, but you should probably plug that.
Yeah.
So, just so I don't forget. So
it's Hellfire Holler. So the Hellfire Holler is kind of a testament. So we are Appalachian. We are in an Appalachian county of Ohio, and we live in the foothills. Most of Ohio is flat, and then you get to our area, and it's where the rolling hills begin, where the big glacial deposits, started like leaving all the sediment and stone, which makes for, I think we are the third most biodiverse forest in the United States. Just missed being a rainforest. If we had more precipitation, we would be classified as a rainforest. But so we live in the hollers. That's what we call them. When we give direction, well, there's a few hollers away. It's all wagon trails and coal mining trails. There's no straight roads. Almost everything's gravel. And then the Hellfire, I've lived a very traumatic life. So I'd like to think of what I grew up in, what I was immersed in, was the Hellfire Holler. It's, very war torn for me. It's tragic, but at the same time, it's what gave me grit, and what has shaped me into the person I am now, which I think had a equal chance of tilting towards being completely lost or on the path which I am now, which is trying to help people.
I have a whole lot of other questions, but on the Hellfire Holler thing, when I first found out who you were, I went to your website and tried to find you and buy your products and things of that nature. And I couldn't figure out why you would pick that as a name, because when you think of holistic healing, you don't think Hellfire.
Right.
So looking back at the name that you chose for your brand, is there any regrets there? Do you think that like you could have done something? No? Okay, cool. I like that you're owning it. I think that's super cool. But
I think that a lot of, like I was telling you, a lot of the people who have followed this journey for a long time, people who have seen the trial and error that went into the creation of these products and stuff, the hard 500,000, man. Like I got a lot of support. I got a ton of people who have watched, this Appalachian kid, put himself back together and they know,
Yeah.
like what I've been through and that story, and what that story is,
I love that there's an authenticity to your brand and that you don't regret it. A lot of people do things like that in the beginning thinking that it sounds cool. And then later it's like, man, I probably shouldn't have done that, which is why I asked. Cause again, I've owned 18 businesses. There are regrets that you have in life when it comes to these things. But I love that. So on there's two things with the lion's mane that I have questions on. The shaky hands thing. Lion's mane helps for people who have tremors.
It definitely did me. So now we've also given it to people who have had what is it called? I can't remember off the top of my head. Women get it all the time. Why can't I remember? Help me out here.
The only thing that's coming to my mind is menopause, and I don't want to say that.
No, you just caught me. You caught me off guard. We've had some people with like Bell's palsy.
Okay,
like, that's helped with that. Why can't I remember? There's been a ton of neurological issues that people have told us that it's really helped. We had this. What was the one guy who said he was going to buy gallons of it? Yeah, glaucoma. I mean, like it's the testament. Like we're still figuring out like what it's helping people. Like we ask people all the time, like please give us your feedback. That's what I was saying. Like autism. Like like one of my really good friends, who has a nonverbal child, who like has been kicking out every therapist that's like come in, like like throwing fits and stuff, is now letting this guy come in and observe. He's a non-cuddler. Now he's like cuddling, stroke victims, dementia. It's, for me, it was like, I could personally say, and I could like show people, cause like you watch the 3 years of me. I mean, everything from my complexion and everything changes, it's really crazy. But, I'm looking at people like I can't answer all your questions, but all I can say is it's not going to hurt to try. And then you get these people that come back and are just, there's like a phantom limb, the tingling from diabetes, and you're reading these and they always just like bring me to tears, because like I literally can't like say it's going to do anything. But
right.
What I can say is it did for me, it did for my journey. Try it out, and then we make it as cheap as we can so people can, and we encourage the feedback. We really want that. I wish I could remember. Like it's one of the most common ones that I'll literally think of it in the next 5 minutes.
All you do is just jump in with it.
Yeah.
So Paul Stamets talks about neural pathways, and I'm not going to get into psilocybin, but he talks a lot about that, and he talks about using niacin to help all of that. Mm-hmm. Do you find that using lion's mane with niacin helps get that through the system? Like, is there a benefit to stacking the two?
I think it helps piggyback it.
Okay.
Yeah, I really do. My theory is that lion's mane is kind of capable of, like, since it's able to pass through the blood-brain barrier, that it almost is like able to piggyback, take small components of other things up and through the blood-brain barrier with it as well. Because when we stack it with like chaga and turkey tail, it's which is a crazy good stack. You know what I mean? Great for skin, great for hormones, great for like cognitive delay. It's able to like kind of really accelerate, boost immunity and do it. So that's what I think. Am I able to prove that? Like, no, I don't have the tools nor the knowledge. But whenever lion's mane is paired with almost anything.
Were you talking about fibromyalgia?
Yes.
Chat got you. Chat's got you.
That's the most common one.
Yeah. I actually told my mom to check out some of your products because she has fibromyalgia. What does chaga do? Because that's one I don't take.
So chaga, it has one of the highest ORAC scale ratings. So it's 99% antioxidant.
Okay.
It's also really, really rich in melanin. So it's great for your skin. Absolutely amazing. Rosacea, like if you become flush all the time, as long as it is harvested from a birch bark tree, because then you're going to get the bellalinic acid from the birch bark, which, helps with pain, inflammation, it's going to like skin conditions, things like that. And then free radicals within your bloodstream. It's just stomps. There's Japonica fallopian, which is Japanese knotweed, an absolutely ecosystem destroyer. But I find that it's super crazy. A lot of times whenever you have these invasive species, they come in like Japanese knotweed. It can grow up to 8 inches a day.
Oh, wow.
And you want to talk about a hydra of a species of plant. You chop it down, all the little bits and pieces of it can re-replicate themselves, grow roots. The root system, like you disturb it, you disturb the rhizomes, every little piece that breaks off, like can turn into a new plant. I mean, it's a nightmare. You can't really burn it away. You can't really bulldoze it away. You just stimulate it to grow more, right? But, and it causes crazy destruction in our ecosystems, like, because it is like a thirsty plant. It's like, it's in the buckwheat family, but it acts a lot like bamboo. So it's like pooling water up and out. Like it can, and not to mention too, it is so powerful that it can literally burrow underneath the ground and rise up from asphalt. Wow. We're talking, if you have Japanese knotweed on your property and you're trying to sell it, someone sees that, like a realtor who knows it, your property value just went down. Oh, wow. It will push through your basement. I mean, it'll start growing, and it doesn't really have much of a problem growing in the dark. Like it's a beast crazy of a plant, but much like, like the birch harvested chaga, it's got 99% antioxidant property. So, and that happens to be one of the things that a lot of people are studying right now, because it bears a biocompound called resveratrol, which a lot of herbalists call reversidol, because it's one of the only natural occurring compounds that looks like it might be a solution to Lyme disease. But these invasive species, I find a lot of the time, it's almost like a wake the fuck up, humans.
Right.
Use it. It's here. It's up to you to curb it, and it's funny. It's, nature is so structured and articulate and intelligently designed, that I look at those things and it's like, wow, this plant that's a pain in everyone's ass, if we were all harvesting it, figuring out how to work with it, working it into our diet and things like that, probably be a lot healthier society. We'd be keeping nature in check, but we don't, and it just makes its presence more and more known until it's destructive. And then we have to go out and do terrible things, salt the ground so it can't grow.
Right.
Hit it with chemicals, like forever chemicals that are going to pollute, streams and kill ecosystems and stuff like that. But
now, is that super prevalent up there? Because in the South we have kudzu.
Yeah, kudzu is very much similar as Japanese knotweed, but is it in my area? Not really, kind of. I mean, they use herbicide quite a bit, and which is so dumb, because whenever you spray it, you're annihilating all of these trees that are keeping erosion from happening, which are preventing landslides, which are, people don't realize, this bridge has just been built through the Appalachian back roads and stuff like that. And they built it with structural integrity, but as time goes on, you have the weight of this hill pushing on it, and over time it's starting to lose structure, starting to weaken. Those roots connect and bind and hold that stuff and give it strength. We're sitting here spraying it,
Yeah.
It kind of, and it's with our tax dollars. And
we have a different issue with that, because the way okay. So first and foremost, I can't go any further without saying that every time I have a tattoo artist on here, we really have a bad stigma. You're a very intelligent human being. And I don't know what your life looked like before you got shot and started this. You're saying things that I don't know, which is not a common thing. I'm an autodidact. I read a lot more than anyone I've ever met. And I'm constantly trying to learn things that I don't know about. So when you leave, I'm going to have a whole lot of shit to Google so that the next time I have a conversation with somebody, I can keep up.
Yeah.
But I have another friend who owns a shop in Iowa who is also a very well-spoken. And when you look at a tattoo artist and you look at us, that's not what you would think. There's a whole lot of stigma that's still in the tattoo industry that I don't think will ever go away.
Right. I think it's the face tattoos.
I think it is too. Yeah. I hear all the time people on the internet, I'm not listening to that guy. Look at the decisions he's made.
Yeah. But it's because I can afford to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it. I get to, I'm free
Right.
And there's a beauty in that.
Yeah. Self-made enough to, be able to make that decision. Been tattooing since 18, it'll be, oh God, 20 years of tattooing in May.
I got in 97.
Yeah.
So that was my entire existence.
Yeah. And it very much is, for me, like I was juggling tattooing just out of high school. And then while I was going to culinary school and while I was in a band, it's always been there.
So were you always this, I don't want to say articulate, but were you always this interested in things? Like, are you somebody that finds a passion and just obsesses over it? Or has this been a pure, like the universe is like, hey, and you're like, okay, I'm listening.
Well, my dad being a forestry major growing up would walk me through the woods. And then my grandmother being a florist, and not just like a florist. My grandma was doing things with plants like before the internet. Like she was like splicing plants together and, she was, essentially figuring out the proper season to, be able to put cuttings in the ground and grow, just the most green thumb human being I've ever met. And then of course that, gets handed over to my mother in, one, form of another. So plants and, my mother being very much so at first, my mom was like with us, she was, we're very ADHD riddled children, and was like, oh yeah, Ritalin will help. And then she was like, actually, this is terrible. I don't want to do this. And then really started relying more herbally, doing, kind of more herbal remedies. And I mean, people don't realize that, whenever we practice herbalism, just spicing our food,
right?
Whenever we put like pepper on something, it's not just a flavor additive. I think our ancestors were adding that stuff, knowing that it would help like, gut issues, that it would help with headaches, and we just kind of lost that. But that a lot of that, especially in my area, you have the Appalachians are still very rich with herbalism,
right.
Because there's this long history of isolation, like there's not going to be a general store and things like that. So we're only a few generations back from where people really did truly rely off the land. So everyone's got their own little pocket of herbal remedy, so that's really rich and abundant in my area. So sediment wise, it was already there, but out of the necessity, like whenever I was losing my ability to do what I loved so dearly, it was like, okay, like I have to focus on this and I have to find an answer. And then once finding it, the epiphany that you have, becomes such a motivator, and you just find yourself wanting to tell everybody about it. You're like, right. Someone's like, oh my God, I get chronic migraines. And you're like, have you heard of feverfew? You're that guy, you're wanting to do that, because you almost want the confirmation back. That person went, they bought like what you told them would help. And then they're like, dude, I don't have headaches. And you're like, fucking sick.
Yeah.
And it becomes like this very addictive thing, that you're chasing. And then you realize like, it's literally all around you at all times. Like it grows out of the fucking dirt, dude, and you have the power to grow it. Like you have the green thumb within you, and you can do that. And then it goes into like, your food, like there's such a difference between a store-bought tomato and a tomato you grew yourself. Not only can you realize that tomato isn't genetically altered or hit with CRISPRs, or covered in bullshit that's going to fuck with your everything, like all of your biochemistry, but you nursed this tomato. You put that seed in the ground. You watched it. You stood over it every single day. And, you are a testament to the fact that you gave that fucker love. You spoke to it every day. You trimmed it. You made sure slugs weren't on it. You planted and like did, like other plants, like all around companion species that would defend it. And you put water in the right place. So, you'd bring in predatory insects that would come and kick the shit out of like, the Sphinx caterpillars, and you're watching it all go down. So when you eat that tomato, you're like, fuck. You're like, God damn, that's the best tomato I've ever had, because it's full of you. It's full of your energy. It's full of your love and your intention. And then that translates so quickly, especially being a foodie and someone that loves to cook, you know, when you have that meal, you know, and it might take you like an hour or two to make that spaghetti, but you're like waiting for that first bite.
Yeah.
You're like watching them. You're like, come on now.
Have you ever read the Celestine Prophecy?
No.
Okay, you should, just because of the whole food conversation. They talk about the transference of energy to our food, and when we grow our own food, you get out of it basically what you put into it.
Yeah, totally.
And it's worded a whole lot differently. It's just a really good, like it's just a fun read.
Yeah.
You know, it's only like 280 pages.
Yeah,
or
you have to
something,
text that. You have to text that to me.
What I was going to say before we got off topic with the articulate is that in Florida, are you familiar with how bad our red tide has gotten? And do you know anything about the Everglades?
Well, I just went there yesterday and started putting in. So that's the thing is 99% of my knowledge is Appalachia. Now, that's no short knowledge. We have one of the most biodiverse ecosystems, you know, in the country. So a lot of things come from our area, you know, and a lot of things that are in our area grow abundantly all over. So I'm very lucky. Like if I was doing something, you know, if I was talking plants in South Dakota, I'd have a very small like window to speak of, you know what I mean? Because it's grassland, you know, there's not much. But no, so down here, tropics, you know, that's why I like doing these trips. That's why when you were like, well, we could just do it Zoom, I was like, fuck that. Yeah,
I'd much rather have people in studio. It's a very different energy than talking across the computer screen.
Yeah.
It's cold.
Yeah, right. So I was like, nah, because I love the opportunity to come down and look. I'm given a very short amount of time. But, you know, yesterday, Cody and I spent all this time with me just with my nose in the internet reading about mangroves, you know.
I saw the video.
And studying mangrove, you know. So, I mean, I would love to get to the point where I'm able to be like the red tide's coming in. So I'm going down. I can research. I could talk about, and then, you know, like, but.
So red tide is it's not man-made, but it is man-affected. And
it's an algae, is it not?
It is.
Yeah.
So in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, when Florida was being built, they destroyed Lake Okeechobee. And they started cutting off water flow, and it affected the way that water flowed from Lake Okeechobee into the Everglades, which filtered through.
It made it more stagnant.
Yeah. And with all the things that go into Lake Okeechobee that now gets filtered into the Everglades, which makes its way out into the Gulf, it becomes red tide. And we have a whole lot of issues that comes from us fucking with the ecosystem and all the shit that we've sprayed, and people put it in their yards because as you drive through here, you'll see all these little tiny itty bitty bridges that you drive over. They're just man-made water waves that all connect here to the Myakkahatchee or the Myakka State Park, which ends up into the Gulf of Mexico. And it's like that throughout all of Florida. If you live within 15 to 20 miles of the coast, there's tons of man-made waterways that go out because we've blocked off all the natural flows. So they've had to make it so that when it gets heavy rains or hurricanes, there's ways for the water to get out. Anytime we have major rains and Lake Okeechobee's fucked up, we get red tide every time. And though our governor's put, I want to say $4.5 billion with a B dollars into Everglade restoration, we are still getting red tide issues. But over the last 6 or 7 years, it's gotten infinitely better. But I was curious about the red tide thing because we just had an outbreak. The beaches on the Gulf Coast where we live are closed. You can't, like, they don't want you out there right now because it's hard to breathe.
Really?
So if you were in the Everglades yesterday, did you guys have any like really dead fish smell or like?
Oh yeah,
that's red tide.
Yeah. We had a guy explaining that, but he explained it as it was a type of fish spawn that was happening.
No, we did that.
I imagine it probably wouldn't bear well to know that all of us on a fan boat were probably kicking up a bunch of algal mess. Yeah, I find it funny, and I talk about this a lot, how we are the one element on this planet that can be removed and everything would go back.
Would be better.
To normal.
It would be better. COVID proved that.
Yeah.
6 months of lockdowns in India, and you were able to see one of the mountains from India for the first time in 30 years. It took 6 months for their air to clean up enough that you could see the mountains. That's insane.
Yeah.
It would definitely be better if we weren't on it.
Yeah. We're, and being, we should all do our best to be stewards.
Right.
The best we can. Like I feel like we're all just the proverbial person sitting outside with a giant can of airsoft just sitting on the nozzle, like, pumping it out like, you know, and then we go, what the fuck's this red tide? You know, we got ourselves to blame, but yeah, we are the one element on this planet that if you were to take us out of the equation, things would kind of like Mother Nature would mend and heal itself, you know, but.
All right. So we're an hour and a half in. We have about 30 minutes left.
Awesome.
Is there anything that you want to touch on before we move on? Cause I think there's people in here that want to ask you questions.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Can you give your social medias real quick? Because I don't want to forget that. That's prevalent.
Yeah. So you can find me, Deadeye Two Tongues, my name on like everything. So that's going to be Instagram. And I also have a link tree, that you can go to on my TikTok. But, so I put all my like wild, wacky, stupid shenanigans on Snapchat. And I've actually been pretty big. Like I've been getting a lot of traction on there because it's just me and Cody.
Do you get paid on Snapchat?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
I'm close.
That's the one app we're not on.
Yeah. So, you know, people can follow you on there, and keep up with all your stuff. Like, I'm still not quite sure how it works, but I get like notifications like your Snap's on fire. It's got like, you know, like 2,000 views in the past like hour, something or other. But that's like where, you know, cause I don't like cussing and stuff like on my channel. Like, cause a lot of people have told me like, you know, hey dude, your TikTok is something that we play in our homeschool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, I try to keep it more so on the, you know, any educational video I'm doing, you know, is geared towards where it can be, you know, put in front of an audience ranging from child to elderly. So that the Snapchat's just like, you know, the cussing and stuff, the stupid banter, you know, and all of that. Instagram is where I post, you know, a lot of my like tattoo work. And it also kind of works as like a secondary, like I post a lot of my TikTok. Facebook, same thing, Deadeye Two Tongues. And then everything else you can find on my link tree, on my TikTok bio and my Instagram bio.
Zach, you'll have to make a note to make sure that we get all of that, all of the links and everything.
And then the website that you can go to if you're interested in our products is just hellfireholler.com. So Holler is HOLLER.
All right. So apparently there's my Discord. My manager's got everything set up in Discord for a running chat. He said there was a running Q&A. All right. So let's get that pulled back up. Somebody said they can't find your Snapchat.
It should be, it should be Deadeye Two Tongues. And it's all one word. Like, and that's how it is on all platforms. Oh, if you guys want to follow Cody too, he is my cameraman. And he is my right-hand man and manager. He's been filming this whole time as well. He is Deadeye _ I think it's Deadeye _ cameraman 1. And that's his. We've been trying to build his platform too. We finally freed him from his shitty 9 to 5.
Oh, so you're doing this full time now. Congratulations, dude. It's freeing.
Yes. That was the goal. And we finally got him there. And that's what a lot of it goes towards still as of now. But it's nice to have somebody that I can be like, Cody, I need this and that
I get
done.
That.
And he helps me.
Zach is my guy for that. I can text him at 2:00 in the morning and shit gets done. Yeah.
So his is Deadeye _ cameraman 1. If you could give him a little bit of love, that'd be awesome. All
right. So the first question was, it says, sorry to ask more, but I was wondering more what near death did to you. I have had a hard time coming back from a heart attack. Fear of death is crippling. How did you get out of it?
Ooh, man, that is a big question. So, you know, whenever my moment of exiting, because, you know, I was teetering, you know, I had to be defibrillated and brought back several times. I had 4 blood transfusions that night. My jugular was done. It was cooked. So as it's coming out, they're pumping it in. I kept going in and out. And I remember it was the first time that my dad had said, I love you, like it wasn't belabored.
Oh, wow.
I was being ran out, mom on one side, dad on the other. And my dad panics in times like that. He's so cute. And
he's so cute.
He's like, be good. Yeah. Be good. And I'm like, fucking be good at what? I'm fucking dying, dude. Like, what the fuck? You know, but that was my moment. And I remember being loaded into the chopper and going out. what brought me a lot of relief was I ran from that moment for a very long time, and wrestled because it was very, very much so like a DMT just rush. Like it was like someone just pumped mainlined acid into my brain. And I know that some people don't remember that, or they don't have a lot. And mine took a bit of time to come back. And I still remember it in little bits and pieces as time goes on. But, that fear and then the trying to figure it out, and all of it culminated into me going, wait a minute, I'm remembering from the other side. I wasn't dead at all. I never was. I was still very much conscious in those moments. Time did not really make sense. My body, not so much there. But if I was to compare it to anything, there's a really good movie with Robin Williams, What Dreams May Come.
Oh, don't do that. That is one of my cry movies, bro.
Oh yeah, bro. We'll pull up a chair and watch that shit
sobbing,
together, crying each other's arms. Yeah, it was very much so. It was kind of like that. Like anything I thought, it was almost like I had the answer to. I can kind of compare it to a peaceful book reading by a babbling brook when I think back on it. Very ancestral. And the thing is, I know that there was so much more, because one of the things that right as I'm like being ejected back to my body is it feels like all this time goes by to the point to where I'm, happily in another life. And it's almost like some shit you got to take care of back there, Like you gotta go do that. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? That life that you had, and I remember, me essentially being like, so what am I going to be able to bring with me here? And they're like, just enough.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because in those probably just minutes of time felt like an eternity. And when I came back, I remember when I looked at my mom, it like actually took me a second to be like, Mom, which was so weird, like it was so weird. But that's what brings me comfort, is that I'm able to say that it wasn't a dirt nap. It wasn't just lights out. It wasn't just gone. There was so much happening in my brain, and DMT is a crazy thing. Yeah. It can stretch one moment out into a lifetime, that I don't really have much fear anymore of that, because I'm a true believer that we 100% don't actually die, like at all. I think that, and then we see kind of little blips of, paranormal, I've seen some pretty wild stuff, like my friend who lost their daughter. She walked into a train, took herself out. That night when they found out, they all watched as a handprint appeared in the condensation on the window.
Oh, wow.
So I have true belief, that parts of us are left here, and we exist in this echo and this memory, and then secondly, I think our brains are very powerful things. And then we have this thing that is very real called a soul.
Yeah.
And I believe it's absolutely eternal. And also, you don't remember being sperm, but you were. You really don't remember being a baby, but you were.
Right.
And much like, you have this life where you're remembering everything, I feel like it maybe whenever we pass, it's just the next form of evolution. We've already evolved two separate ways within this lifetime, being a little wiggly tadpole, being a baby, learning motor function and how to think.
Alan Watts, first of all, I'm doing an ayahuasca retreat. We are doing an ayahuasca retreat next month. And one of the things that I'm hoping to get from it is that
alleviation of fear
of death.
Yeah.
Right. Because I obsess over it. I will send myself in a panic attack over it.
Yeah.
Alan Watts, and one of the things that I read in the last 6 weeks, said that you don't remember anything before your birth. So what makes you think that you're going to remember anything after your birth? It's paraphrasing, but so you're right in that we don't remember being a sperm or we don't remember all of that, but that is part of our evolution of who we are. But do you believe that the consciousness is still there after the fact?
Oh yeah. 1,000,000,000% seen it.
See, that's what I want from my Aya retreat.
Yeah. You know, I think that people who have died are the reason that we believe in things like heaven and hell. I think that if I had, you know, if I was a rather unsavory character responsible for millions upon millions of people dying, or, you know, ruling over countries with an iron fist, like, you know, one of the feudal kings of Europe or something, your consciousness probably sucks. You know, like it probably sucks because the whole time you're doing that shit, you know you're being a dickhead.
Right.
You know you are, but you're doing it because it enriches you. So on those moments of your deathbed, especially when that DMT is about to fucking kick in and your last thoughts are, I'm a piece of shit.
Right.
Guess what you just created? Your own fucking hell.
Yeah.
And you're going to go to it.
Dude, that makes sense.
Yeah.
People that don't, if you've never done DMT, that 10 to 15 minutes does feel like years.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot.
Yeah.
So the next question on here is, as you are who you are now, what would you go back to? What would you go back and tell your 17-year-old self? Would you give yourself a warning that this is coming, or would you let things play out to be where you are?
No, absolutely not. No.
There is so much acceptance in that. And that's a superpower.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
My wife and I say the same thing. Yeah. I had trauma like you would not believe growing up. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't change any of it.
Yeah.
Because I am so happy with where I am in my life and what I'm doing with myself. I feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
So
yeah, all of the grit, the grime, the addiction, the you know, everything that happened, you know, it takes a long time to be able to be, you know, comfortable with that, to, you know, release anger, and it has a backswing, man. I remember my mom, you know, breaking down and looking at me one day and being like, you haven't been the same since your TBI. I'm just going to say it, you know, like I needed to get control. I mean, like, you know, it becomes so frustrating, and you're trying to think through like a veil of broken neurons and trauma and trying to patch. I mean, you're like the little kid with the dam, but you're out of fingers, you know what I mean? And eventually you just let the fucking dam go. You let it go, you know, and you learn to build a fucking boat, you know, and you ride it, you know, and you hope to God you get to somewhere where the rapids like stop and everything. It takes a lot of acceptance. But I have, you know, already a while ago, it took a minute to be like, dude, fucking God put me in this position to experience the shit that I'm experiencing, because I'm able to put it into words for people who are hurt, and that I would not change anything for, you know. And I mean, it takes on a lot, man. You know, I have like 4 hernias right now. Like I got one that pops out so far. I am close to having a colostomy bag. I mean, I got insurance, and like we're about to get that. Someone in South Dakota who saw it popping out from my shirt was like, "Let me see that," and I showed him, and they're like, yeah, "Dude," and you
had somebody like diagnose a hernia on a TikTok video?
No, not well. Okay. On a TikTok.
We'll go with that.
A couple of TikTok videos too, but you know, it was somebody in South Dakota, you know, who saw this popping, you know, because dude, it's 6 out. I got 4.
Wow.
You know, and like it was, you know, it's not the doctor's fault and stuff, dude. I'm in such bad shape that they're like fucking cut him open, removing shit, pulling it out, like, you know, patch me back together, go.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of bound to happen. They didn't really stitch my abdominal muscles back together the way they should have. So I got this big gap like between my abdominal muscles, and my guts just.
They got to put mesh in there, huh?
Yeah, and then they got to bring my abdominal muscles back together. You know, but like the nerve damage and the trauma and everything, it was just given to the right person for the job, you know, because I'm a stubborn son of a bitch, and I'm going to find a way to make it better for me.
In the 3 years that we've been doing this podcast, I have stated over and over and over again that I believe that I went through what I went through because I could survive it and other people couldn't. And my testimony and the things that I am doing now is going to prevent people that would not have made through what I made through be able to get through the other side. Yeah,
totally.
There's a strength in that. And it changes, for my situation, it changes the abuse and the trauma. I need you to slow down over there, Cheeto. All right. Next question is what would you say your biggest struggle was in the aftermath of losing your eye?
Oh man. I remember On the way home. Oh, so first and foremost, here's what's funny. I wasn't brought to an eye specialist by any means. I was brought to St. Mary's in West Virginia. A shout out. You guys rock. They actually, it was before I had insurance. I ended up getting retrograde insurance, which helped with a lot of my stuff. But the crew there put together money to like help me get an ambulance and everything, but we're talking people who don't know eyes at all. So my eye is obliterated. I mean, it just looks crazy. Like my pupil was like drug into the sclera of my eye. Like it was, and I remember them doing tests and flashing the flashlight and being like, closing my good eye, and being like, can you see light? And I still could see light.
Wow.
And they're like, it's a miracle. And they're like, everybody come in here. Look, you can still see light. Well, that was dilating my eye and it fucking killed the last bit of juice that it had, so it had to be removed. I forget the syndrome that happens, but it's when your brain starts to sympathize. It's like a 1 in a million chance, but it's a chance you don't want to take, but your brain can start sympathizing with your bad eye and then it will try to bring the eyes to like a balance. So it'll actually start to degenerate the good eye that you have to kind of draw them equal. So they're like, pop that fucker, full nucleation. I'm thinking plants, sorry. But full nucleation, removed everything. But I remember I was always someone who was so mind over matter, and being like you could do it. Like, I'm one of those people that's like, if I'm paralyzed, I'm going to spend every day being like, no, I'm fucking not.
Right.
Fucker. like just trying to move legs that, can't, because I'm fully expecting to be like one day, I'm going to get like a little wiggle and that little wiggle is going to be all I need to get the full motion someday. But there was just no fighting it. It was toast. And I remember literally closing this eye and being like, see, fucking see, like trying. And I remember finally like coming to terms with it. And I sat there and I was like, okay, so what sucks about it? Well, I could see my nose. Like zero peripheral, like none. Like, I get blindsided a lot, literally. Zero depth perception. So, hanging out with the homies now, you go up to dap them up, you miss. You're trying, sometimes you're trying to set something on, a counter. You're not quite there, but it did increase some cool stuff. Like, my marksmanship actually went up because I don't have the stress of having to like crunch my face. So I just see how I see. So when I aim down a sight, it's literally just as simple as, and I've gotten good at that. So darts, I got pretty good at and stuff. But the biggest challenge, was definitely occupational. I remember being like, I need to know if I could fucking tattoo. It was 24 days after being shot. I'm wheelchair bound. I'm being brought in, dumped into my tattoo chair. And I'm sitting there and I'm struggling and I can't really I'm like hitting just a like 1/4 of an inch, like over. And I'm like, ugh. But luckily it's on a good friend who's like being super chill and just is more so like, this is the first tattoo you did after being shot. But then, you start to adapt. Like I realized like, oh, I can't rely on looking where the tip of the needle is. Instead, I need to rely on where the shadow falls from the light, So then I started placing lights in strategic places. And then, it's like you can see. And I focus on the shadow and the shadow gives me more of an accurate where, So little things like that. But, realizing that I will forever be monocular was definitely a struggle. It's a challenge, and I can attest though that the people always ask, and I guess I'll just answer the question for anybody who might be, do your other senses get better upon the loss of one? I can say that my left ear is my eye. Like my hearing has become far more acute, far more capable, and they work pretty well in tandem. And then also I've scratched my cornea like 4 or 5 times on my good eye, resulting in like days of being blind.
Wow.
Which like, you start doing funny things, you're walking around, you're like snapping, listening to reverberation, kind of echolocating and stuff. So, you do get some neat little things out of the loss, but adapting to it, was a bitch. Totally a bitch. Most of it was just the headspace of not being able to change something.
Yeah. I have an artist that works for me that's blind in one eye. And I was always curious about the depth perception and how he made that work. It's cool to know that you use shadows.
Yeah.
He said he follows this puddle.
Yeah.
Everything is, he does a lot of like realism shit too, though. So it's, I don't know how the fuck he does it. I don't think that I would be able to go back to tattooing because I'm a very technical artist.
I'd like to dap him up, but I guarantee we'd miss.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we would both look at each other and smile like,
that's funny.
You get it. You get it.
Kalista asked, would lion's mane possibly help with seizures?
We have seen it help people with seizures, and especially the aftermath of seizures. That was Wesley. He had a stroke and then continued to have seizures like afterwards. And we have had people who have taken it for seizures, who have had it, who have told us it's helped.
Absolutely not.
And we're currently working on making an extra strength lion's mane as of right now. The one we have results in about 1,500 milligrams a day. We're going to make one that will push you up to 5. Is
there a limit where you believe there's going to be a point of no return in terms of milligrams taken? Like if you were to get to 10,000 milligrams, do you think that it would just stop being as effective after 7,000 or something?
Essentially, I don't think there's any real point metabolism wise, like to push it anywhere past 5.
Okay.
I think that's just a boast-worthy type thing, like where, it's like, oh, look, I got 10,000 milligrams in this, well, your body's only going to be able to pull, a certain amount, from it.
Jay asked if there's any tinctures on your website that should not be taken together.
No, not that I can think of. We made all of them to where they can go very well in tandem with one another. Especially because most of the time, kind of they're like therapeutics. Like, if you're having anxiety, there's one for anxiety. You're not always having anxiety. Like, some people might, but you can actually kind of skip even buying lion's mane because lion's mane is an antidepressant. So that is going to be in our anxiety formula. And, we have one, you're not going to be taking the sleep tincture during your day,
right?
But no, all of them and most of them do have lion's mane in them. The ones that are stacks, but no, every single one of them can be taken. Yeah.
So I take Host Defense. That's the brand that I've used for the last 2 years, and I take lion's mane, quadriceps, agarikon, turkey tail, and reishi every morning. When my Host Defense bottles run out, which I'm getting low on, I plan on moving over to actual tinctures instead of pills.
Okay.
What on your website, knowing that that's what I take, what would you say would be a good replacement for that in terms of tincture instead of pills?
Well, we have Mycomender, which is going to have your Chaga, your turkey tail, and it's going to have your lion's mane. And then we are working on reishi when we get back. But so essentially we had reishi on our website, but we had to stop selling just in the state of Ohio. We got our botanics license and we upgraded. So all of our backstock of reishi can only be sold in the state of Ohio under penalty. So we are, which made us kind of take a hit, because we were operating within what's called cottage law, which is where you're able to operate, out of your home and do sales under a certain amount of money per year. And then also you're able to sell within your state. But in order to do retail, in order to sell out of state lines, we had to upgrade our botanics license, which made a lot of the stuff that we had made kind of moot.
Okay.
And we're not just going to relabel them because I don't want to cut corners or anything like that. But I would say Mycomender would be what you would want. It'd be the closest thing to your stack.
Yeah. Because the amount of money that I spend with them to take all 5 of those, to be able to just drop or something would be way better than taking 5 pills anyways. It'd be a whole lot faster.
Yeah. And the process that we use, where we use extract is going to be probably more potent, especially because it's in an alcohol, which is going to act like a quick delivery system, especially when placed under the tongue.
Okay. Yeah. And then Abby asked, what tinctures do you recommend for somebody beginning their mushroom journey?
I would do the Mycomender. Mycomender is going to be your turkey tail, which is going to help with stability. That's what turkey tail is super known for. Also, hormonal balance. So in Paul Stament's stack, he's got turkey tail. Like, he attributes turkey tail to a lot of the reason why his mother beat breast cancer. Helps regulate and balance your hormones. Then you're going to have the ORAC capacity of your Chaga, which is going to help with your free radicals. It's going to help with your skin. And then you're going to have lion's mane for your brain function, and also like mood, like elevation, mood stability, and any sort of neuropathy. You know, it's kind of king dingling for the nervous system.
Okay. You keep mentioning the skin. I have really bad beard dandruff.
Yeah.
Is it something that you like would skin supplement that you would put on, or is it just a tincture that you would drink?
It's a tincture. Yeah. So it's, like I said, Chaga is full of melanin. Same thing that we have in our skin.
So for somebody that has really dry skin, that would be a benefit?
It would definitely overall benefit your skin. Yeah.
That's good to know.
We also make a beard oil. So
yeah, I saw. I'm waiting, dude. It's one of those things. Like, you sent us that care package, and we've been taking the gummies.
Yeah,
which taste good. So congrats to that, because normally gummies are gross as shit when you get them from somebody.
Yeah.
But we're waiting on our normal supply of things to run out, and then we were going to switch over so that we can run long term to see what's what. Cool. I really hope to God that's not coming through the mics. It's not. Okay. It's not. Somebody said, I hear that mushrooms help with PCOS.
PCOS.
PCOS is, and I'm not going to be able to remember exactly what it is, but it's an ovarian issue that affects hormones. Semaglutide, which is Ozempic, is supposed to help with PCOS as well.
Yeah.
Just Google it real quick, because I don't want to speak out of turn. Stop it. Polycystic ovary syndrome. It's a hormonal disorder that can cause infertility, weight gain, acne, and other symptoms.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to it because I'm definitely not a doctor. I don't know this syndrome like personally, but I can attest that mushrooms. I mean, here's when people are like, so mushrooms have the capacity to do this. I go back to psilocybin just as like a reminder that there's a mushroom that can literally alter your brain to the point to where you are you still here? Where are you?
Right. What
are you seeing? What's happening? And that's always like, you lay the groundwork. It's like, man, the psilocybic, and, you also have like, the Amanita muscaria, like the muscimolic mushrooms.
That's the Mario mushroom for those of you who don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like once saw as like one of the most toxic and poison mushrooms. Like, dude, I'd dry that fucker out and smoke it.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, dude. Talk about a mellow, awesome fucking buzz. But be careful with the amanitas though. Okay. but the muscarias are sweet. But yeah, they're like, you have all these people questioning, and yeah, I love when people are, they sit there and they question like plant capacity for healing and stuff, and it's like,
close that curtain real quick.
It's like, well, do you drink coffee, sir? Do you smoke the marijuana? Like, obviously plants can impact, your brain's chemistry, and alter and change, like your thought processes, your health, so can mushrooms help hormones? I know turkey tail does. Turkey tail helps balance hormones. It helps, like, if you're producing a lot of estrogen, you're producing too much testosterone, it helps kind of bring things to like where they need to be. It helps like push things to a kind of a regulation in your body, which, is like a preventative for things like breast cancer. So it would not surprise me if that syndrome could be affected also in a positive light with turkey tail. Buff
Bell said, which mushroom will make you jacked?
Well, a lot. So I calculated it the other day. What was it? It was 1 million, it was like 100,000 or something calories that I've eaten since last March, and 820 hours in the gym.
So it's just not there. There's no mushroom for that yet.
Well, I mean, cordyceps is an adaptogen, so much like, humans discovered horny goat weed by following around a goat. You have these Chinese farmers who are on these mountaintops, and they're walking around, and they notice that these goats that are eating, what they eventually named horny goat weed. They just noticed that these fuckers, when they mounted, were just giving it hell, and producing hardy stock and producing lots of goats. They were giving stamina and stuff to these goats, and then humans, of course, out of curiosity, are like, well, what happens when I take this shit?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out, gives you a big old stiffy.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with cordyceps militaris. They noticed goats were eating this, and they had more energy. They had like more capacity to run and become like more on the dominant side of their flock. And that's when the Chinese started using them in the Olympics, and they for a long time accredited the cordyceps genus as their energy supplementation. And a big reason for that is that it helps boost the intake of oxygen to your bloodstream, which helps open up your vascular system, helps blood pump, which helps you breathe, and it's an adaptogen, so it's non-stimulant. So if there was going to be one that you wanted to take for performance purposes, that would be the one.
So we know that, I'm not going to speak on the world, but in American society, our adrenals are fucking wrecked.
Oh yeah.
Red Bull, Monster.
Oh yeah. Energy
right?
drink and
pre-workout.
Yeah.
1,3-diethylamine, right? Like
absolutely.
So I have 2 weeks that I have to go on a very strict diet because of the IO retreat. They gave us an actual diet we have to follow before we do this retreat. There's going to be shamans, the whole thing. It's not just like some, we're going to take some drugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I have to cut caffeine out effective tomorrow. Right. Well, yesterday my diet consisted of 600 milligrams of caffeine and 25 milligrams of ephedra. So like I have,
yourself.
Yeah. Well, I have to, like I said, today's the last day that I get any of it. So tomorrow would I be able to take like beets and cordyceps to like get that same effect that I get from caffeine at like a high dose? Would that?
Well, first I would up your water intake.
Yeah. Well, caffeine dehydrates people and they don't realize that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I would definitely up your water intake for sure. And I'd start doing that now. I'd drink a water for every bit of caffeine you drink today, because that's really going to help.
You're not the first person who's told me that. So,
yeah.
But I normally only have one energy drink a day. Yesterday was a no sleep day, so I got through my day by any means necessary.
Right.
So, and had there been other options, I would have taken it because I was a fucking mess yesterday.
Yeah.
But I am definitely worried about the headaches that's going to come from the caffeine and the lack of it. That's my concern.
Yeah. Yeah. He was a big Pepsi drinker.
Yeah.
And he's quit drinking Pepsi in 3 or 4 like within the past just year too.
Yeah, just recently.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Cordyceps was the one that he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. All right. Well, I don't see anything. How difficult would it be to grow and process these mushrooms in a home?
So you can get what's called a Martha tent. And so I'm working on it. I'm just lazy. I was going to work with North Spore as an affiliate and kind of like help them. They do make great products. Very educational as well. If you want to tap in with them on YouTube, which by the way, I have a YouTube as well. I forgot to mention that. It's just recycled TikToks as of now, but we're working on changing that. Okay. So if you don't mind boosting us up there too, that'd be great, guys.
Yeah.
But you can get what's called a Martha tent. So what that's going to give you is it's going to give you an air filter. It's going to give you a multi-shelf. And you can also build these things, you can, if you look at what it is, bare bones, it's kind of looks like a bookshelf and you got your plastic wrap around it. Allows you to have multiple tiers, and then it's got a fan, which is going to put clean air in. And then you genuinely need to make sure that you have a filter, and you need to change your filter, because what will happen is mushrooms do this thing called sporing. It's their little ejaculation thing that they do. So mushrooms are the reproductive aspect of the mycelial network that they create. They are in fact the male organ essentially. And they are pumping out what you don't realize that you're breathing in right now. Us right now.
All the time.
Everyone is. So as a matter of fact, the amount of spores that's made every year is 500,000 megatons.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
that really puts things into perspective.
Yeah. It's 500 blue whales.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine? And where I got that factoid too is if anyone wants to read a really, really great book, it's Merlin Sheldrake's Entangled Life. Absolutely amazing if you want to look at mushrooms in a new way. But so we were making mushrooms in my RV, and we were running power, and to power the Martha tents and stuff. And what we didn't realize was that a lot of the spores were still making their way into the RV. And one day I was walking up the stairway and there was Pleurotus oyster mushrooms growing up and out. And I was like, we're cooked. The mycelium got in, it started eating kind of like the padded carpet underneath, started spreading into the flooring and everything. Hard to get rid of unless you gut and rip up the whole floor.
Yeah.
But they are incredibly pervasive. They will spore if they find something that fits like their substrate. So essentially their food. They will inoculate that. They will set a spore, and that spore will start to grow mycelial roots, hyphelial strands, and it will start to eat at everything. So when you're growing mushrooms, keep that in mind. You really need to be very proactive on your filter. And if you can, make it to where it's pushing outside. So take your hose and spread it all out, because then also you could very well, if your area is one that is privy to the mushrooms that you're growing, then you could very well inoculate your yard and your local habitat. But yeah, you can buy these Martha tents. They're rather cheap. And then another thing is you're going to realize, for example, pink oyster mushroom does not have the same growing conditions as, other oyster mushrooms. It's a tropical mushroom, it's more on the tropic side. So if you're like, oh, I'm going to grow lion's mane and this and that and this and that and this and that, in there, and they're all in the same one, you're not really doing yourself much justice. You're going to get small flushes. Lion's mane likes a little bit on the cooler side. Get a Martha tent for all your lion's mane, Yeah,
you'll need individual tents for each individual thing. And like you said, the different oyster mushrooms are going to grow differently as well. Mm-hmm. Cubensis will do the same thing. Like there are some that want that 80-degree temperature and some that want that 68 to 72. Yeah.
And those most of the time are grown in monotubs.
Right.
Which I believe if TikTok didn't take it down, I did a instructional video on. So
that's the thing. Go to his TikTok if you guys wanted to figure that out.
Yeah, but they hit me real hard for a while. And I got swatted, not because of the internet, but so it was actually really funny. One day we're doing some yard work, and all of a sudden all these sheriffs roll up, and I'm sitting there and they're like, Mr. Andrews, and I was like, what the fuck, and they're like, we need to talk to you. And I was like, okay. They bring me up and they start reading me Mirandas, and I look and there's police all around, because at the time I'd moved from growing one location to this old kind of garage, over here. And they had already kind of just pretty much violated my rights as is, but they heard I was growing mushrooms, and, they were circled and they looked through and they saw mushrooms growing, and I wasn't growing anything bad.
Right.
I was growing my lion's mane and all sorts of stuff. And they were like, so, we heard that you're growing mushrooms. And I was like, I indeed am. And they were like, you're not going to,
that easy.
You're not going to fight this.
Right.
And I'm like, I am, I 100% am, and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to read you Miranda's. And I was like, it's not necessary. I'm not growing anything illegal, Well, then the funny thing was the owner of that property, who's a good friend of mine, old man, just a bite or two, man. If I was to compare him to anything, it would be kind of like Chihuahua energy.
Yeah.
Like old man, blue collar, he gets there and he's like, you violated his rights and you profiled him. Just because he's covered in tattoos doesn't mean he's blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And he pulls me aside and he's like, are you growing fucking anything illegal in there? I was like, no, sir. No. And I'm like, they're going to go through all this and they're not going to be able to do anything. So we end up waiting for 3 hours with me just pacing, kind of sitting there with them all around me and stuff. And they're like, we're just waiting for a forensic mycologist in California to answer his phone. We wait and they finally get a FaceTime and he's like, yeah, show me the setup and everything. And I was like, just let me talk to him. And I was like, dude, I'm growing fucking lion's mane. and a few things of oyster mushrooms. And he's like, oh yeah, let me see. And he verifies. And I was like, dude, I told you, you're fucking with my GIMP garden, dude. You know, and they were about to start cutting bags, and I was like, wow. Dude, you fucking do that. You do that. Oh my God, I will. Yeah. Oh man, you know, because they would have ruined months of work. They were about to start opening mason jars and stuff. I was like, no.
All your live cultures and shit.
Yeah, because I stretch cultures and do all sorts of stuff, which is crazy. What a good gig. You know, I did the math. You know, in one, I forget, I think it's the quart jar of like liquid culture, $1,800. You sell it at $20 a syringe, which is common price.
I have a lot of friends that do that.
Yeah, but you can literally, I mean, you have to worry about exhausting the DNA. I mean, essentially you're by replicating it and not taking a core sample from the mushroom, eventually you're going to get to like a stagnant point and your mushrooms are going to be like wimpy. Whatever, but yeah, talk about easy. It's, you know, it's like 98% water to 2% sugar, you know, and you just pop in your little bit of mushroom and it replicates itself and makes billions upon billions. And
so you did you showed a mono tub setup and taught people that on TikTok, and you didn't get dinged for that?
No, because I didn't say what I was growing.
Oh, okay. I posted a video once of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that had 8 grams of penis envy on it. And I was like, today's gonna be a hell of a day, and I got to fucking strike for it, bro. I got like,
it doesn't surprise me.
It was just powder. Like I didn't even say what it was.
Yeah. So anytime, that's why I literally can't hashtag fungi or mushroom.
Right.
Like I can't, like, which sucks because that misleads the search engine.
Right.
But like you can't do that because TikTok immediately, just like the SWAT team that showed up to my house, was like, oh, I didn't even tell you the best part of that. So the guy who's barking, the old man, so he was so fascinated by what I was doing. He would walk in and I'd be explaining all this shit to him. You know, he's like, this is just so cool. Yeah. Well, he's the head poobah, the grand poobah at the local moose, you know, which is like kind of like a organization to help children through, in our area, a bunch of Appalachian rednecks who have nothing to do. So they're like, every time I drink, I help a kid. Yeah. Fucking love that mentality. But you know, they're doing all that, you know, and he goes into the local watering hole and he's just sitting there and he's like, man, I got this young man and rents this property out there and he's just growing all these mushrooms and it's just so cool. It's just so cool. So when he shows up, he's like, y'all violated his rights. You're profiling him and it's his fucking fault.
Yeah, that's funny.
It's his. I found that shit out later. I laughed so hard. I mean, he had the best intentions, but you know, people hear the word mushroom and the first thing they think is mind bending, you know, like mind altering substance, which even lion's mane is true. Right.
It's a neurotropic.
Right. So, but you know, that's the one that everyone goes to. But you know, they talk about multifunctional, man. There's literally like so many that have varying purposes and, you know, like for different, I mean, like they help your libido. And that's another like example. And they store 10,000% their vitamin D content. Like if you put them in the sun, they can absorb 10,000 times their initial vitamin D content. So it's like a supplement. It's like a vitamin D supplement, you know, like they're kick-ass, but you know, much like having a shitty cousin in your family, you know, who's just like ruined the reputation of like everyone by robbing the catalytic converters and copper out of everyone's shit in the town. You know, you got the one that's king fucking dingling that reigns over everything, making it kind of hard to believe that they're good for anything other than fucking you up.
Right.
You know,
that's wild. That's wild. I couldn't imagine like the knowing that this is going to be something that you're turning into a business and it being like, so when you said that in my head that you've got like fucking rows of bookcases of bags that are knocked up, ready to start fruiting and they're ready to just start cutting it. Like, the fear that would go into that, knowing that you're trying to build a brand, I would have been fucking panicked.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done well in that situation. And even though you're not doing anything wrong, like, what are you going to do? You're going to sue them for the potential loss of income? Like, you then have to prove that. Like,
it wouldn't have mattered. They're all good old boy types, man.
Right.
Who all know everybody. You know, it would have been dirt napped. Like, they would have just been like, dude, fucking boo-hoo. You know, it's going to cost you an awful lot of money to screw us. And I tell you what, if you do, fucking every time you drive through town, you're going to get pulled over. You know, we're going to make your, so you just learn who holds the power there, you know. But luckily I tattoo a lot of them.
Yeah.
Or they follow me on TikTok, Deadeye 2 Tongues.
Yeah. The tattooing the local law enforcement has gone a very long way for me.
Yeah, right.
Very long way. I've gotten pulled over 2 cities up, like an hour from here, by a state trooper and his daughter's a client at the shop. And the sticker on the car got me out of a felony speeding ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it like I donated to?
No, he saw the badge of my
studio?
shop logo and he's like, you work there? I'm like, I own the shop. And he's like, oh shit, my daughter gets tattooed by blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah. And he's like, I expect a discount next time I come in here. Slow down, buddy. Yeah. He's like, I could have taken you to jail tonight. I was like, I fucking know, because they're going like 45 over the speed limit.
Yeah.
He just let me leave.
Actually, TikTok not like I did anything, but it was like a very clear profiling that happened to me driving to Cody's house, actually. And I get popped, and I'm literally about to go into drive-through. Like, a lot of people don't know what a drive-through is in Ohio. You can drive through a store and they hand you your shit.
We used to have those here.
That's the coolest shit. Like people from out of state, when we go through them, they're like, what the fuck? It's magic. But I'm about to go in the drive-through and I get popped and I know I haven't done shit, and I got nothing in the car. I mean, the only thing I do have is mycology tools, which can look an awful lot like someone who's going to be. Yeah. Like, it's just like syringes and needles and stuff good for liquid culture, but they're all tidied up, and all that good stuff. And I'm like, okay, what the fuck? So he pops me and he's like, when you're done, I want you to pull into that lot, because there's a lot right next door. And I turn around and I'm like, why? I'm like, why? And he's like, what did you say? He's like, go there now. I'm like, oh shit, I should have said why, man. Fuck. I pull in, I'm sitting there, and he comes. He's got a hard on for me already, man. I roll down the window, and he's looking in my car, and good thing my car is a fucking ecosystem. It's like, go ahead, bud. I have fucking critters in here, dude. Like, go for it. I was sitting there, and he's like, and I'm like, and I know my constitutional rights, so I'm sitting there, and I'm like, well, what's your reasonable articulable suspicion? I need to know before I comply. I'm not just going to give you my information and stuff. I need to know why you're pulling me over. That just gives him even more of a hard on, man. So next thing I know, he's like radioing and stuff. And I'm like, here we go. And dude, it was quick. But they were all black vehicles, with the lights on the inside flashing blue. They all come up, man. And I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, whoa. So obviously they were doing some task force shit that day. Right. And I'm like, okay, here we go, man. And I'm not afraid because I don't have anything in my car, So I'm sitting there, and like they keep coming up, different ones keep coming up to the window, asking me the same stupid questions, seeing if I'll play ball. Finally, this one comes up. He looks in the car and he's like, oh, hey, it's you. And I was like, me, fuck. Like, and he's like, yeah, I follow you on TikTok. And I was like, oh, fucking thank God. I'm like, yeah, dude, what the fuck is going on? He's like, oh, he's just flat out. He's like, yeah, we're just looking for drugs. He's like, I'll get them off of you. He's like, I follow you on TikTok. I know you don't do drugs. And I was like, oh my God. So then that one who was an asshole to me, he like comes up and he's all of a sudden real nice.
Because you're famous.
And probably terrified. I'm like live streaming or something.
Right.
Which I'm not. It was stupid. I should have. But, I was like sitting there and he's like, well, sir, I'm going to give you this warning. He's like, you don't have to do anything with it. You could just stuff it in your glove box. You don't even have to look at it, And he's like, but it is for like, he said that my cover on my license plate had like kind of went slanted and covered up the county little title sticker. And he's like, if you want to come out and look at it. And I was like, sure, I'll come out and look at it. And I go back and I look and you could clearly see it. You could clearly see this thing. And I just looked at him and was like, I know you need to like dig up a reason. And I was like, but this is profiling, bro.
Yeah.
You saw me driving and you went, that dude's got tattoos. Hit him.
Yeah.
But I got out of it because of TikTok.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
One more day with no cavity search, bro.
Yeah. That's a win. All right. We got to wrap up because my wife is going to be going live with her other podcast in a little bit. Is there anything you want to add to this? Give your social medias one more time.
Yeah. So the easiest way to do that, just go to my TikTok. It's going to be Deadeye 2 Tongues. And it's all one, Deadeye 2, the number 2 tongues. It's actually there in the title, I do believe. And then you can go to my link tree and click that. That's going to have all of my socials. And then if you don't mind, follow Deadeye_cameraman1. That'd be awesome. We're trying to help him out. We're trying to get him monetized. If we can get him to 10,000, that would be Super, super awesome. And then our company is hellfireholler.com if you're interested in our products.
Zach, if you could post all of that in the Discord when you get a chance, I'd appreciate that. With that being said, guys, thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you are somebody who likes this or has a story similar to him or that you think should be told, send us an email at tobebetterco@gmail.com so that we can get you in the studio. And thanks for tuning in, guys.
Hey, man, I appreciate everything you do. I really appreciate you having me on the show.
This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I could do this all the time.
I'm seeing people, say that this was a good episode.
Yeah.
I had a real good time. It didn't feel like I was doing an episode of shit.
Yeah, that's the goal, right? Because that's organic energy.
Yeah.
That's why I don't script any of these. I don't want any type of weird, I got to think about this question. He's going to ask it. I need to answer it exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to ask until we start talking. And if you say something that interests me, then we're talking about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's awesome. I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you so much for having me. And hope to see you over on the socials.
Later, guys.